There we go. So hi. So George Mumma, thanks for doing this. I'd like to talk to you, just clarify some things that I don't quite understand about your campaign. Why don't you introduce yourself and tell us what you're doing and why?
Well, my name's George Mumma. I'm running to be your next state representative in House District 25. House District 25 runs from I-70 south to Deckers and from about Pine Junction all the way out east to Wadsworth. It jig jogs around down there on the flats a little bit. So my constituents are the mountain folks and some folks out here on the flats, and all of them have their own special needs. And that's what I get the phone calls about, is the stuff that they're concerned with and what they'd like to see happen at the Capitol.
Gotcha. So you had a long career in law enforcement. Why did you decide to run for office? And what do you think the tools you have, or let me try that again. How do you think the tools you have are best going to serve?
Well, Michael, 45 years in law enforcement, I went from the bottom, pushing a patrol car, all the way to being a chief of police. And during that time, I worked at a number of different agencies, spent time at the district attorney's office, putting programming together. And I've worked with a lot of different people. All of my career has been involved in being collaborative, working with the community, trying to make things happen, not spending a ton of money. In fact, with the police department, the whole goal was to make things happen with almost nothing. And we did that. And I think the legislature needs to be thinking about those same things, being a little bit more creative, thinking out of the box to make stuff work. And so getting down there would be one of the things that would be important to me, is to use those skills that I had as a law enforcement officer down there, and also use those skills to address some of the problems that we have in House District 25.
Got it. So what are the big issues that constituents and you're interested in for House District 25 as part of your campaign?
Well, so there's a couple things that the constituents are concerned about. One, which is actually two parts. It's the economy and crime problems. And the reason, or the way that you put that together, is that because of the things the legislature has done, it is now impacting constituents. And again, that may not be something that the legislative folks thought about when they did it. For instance, if you go into a grocery store today and you have somebody walk in and take a whole basket of groceries and walk out the door, they then walk out with what used to be a felony's worth of groceries, which would be jail time. It had consequences associated with it. Today, that's a misdemeanor. So the store folks call the sheriff's department to report. The sheriff's department says, we're not sending anybody, but we'll make a desk report. The clerk then says, well, then I could get in trouble because the corporate folks don't want me getting involved, so they don't report. That then says by the district attorney's office that crime's down. Well, it's really not down, it's just not reported. The corporate folks then take those prices and bump them up because they have to make their money as well. So it comes back on the folks in House District 25. But it didn't stop there. We also took auto theft and took it from a felony and made that a misdemeanor. Now, since then, they bumped it back up to felony 6, but again, there's still no consequences. What's the consequence on the folks in House District 25? Well, if they have their car stolen multiple times, they either get no insurance or high insurance premiums, which makes their life difficult again. And part of that becomes when we took Senate Bill 217 and decided we were going to reinvent law enforcement. One of the things we did is we took qualified immunity away. When you take qualified immunity away from a law enforcement officer, their plan to do proactive police work ceases to exist because of the fear that they could lose their homes or be charged or jailed or whatever. So the officers sit by, wait for a call, handle the calls for service, but don't do anything proactive. The other thing that brings is when you talk about the traffic, there is no traffic enforcement because every time you get out of the car, you run the risk of getting a beef filed against you for doing your job. So the officers are less likely to do the work. So that's the crime and economy component all in a nutshell.